Have you ever been hit by that just great idea and you don't get to write it down? And then some distraction happens to you, or you just say to yourself, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that, or I should definitely get to that or write it down later. And then you just get distracted and you forget. And then the next time you recall it, you're just like, what was that? What was the details? Or sometimes you just never recall it again. That happens to me all the time. And what I've been trying to do is, what you would logically do is just try to write it down as soon as possible. But sometimes you just don't find yourself in the position to, or it's kind of like this stream of thought kind of idea that you can't just quite get into words yet, or it would just take too much effort. And then you would lose that spark of creativity that's so uh, hard to come by and valuable. So I started recording myself not too long ago, where if I had that spark, or usually it happened to me in the gym, which is funny. I'd be working out, thinking about a problem, or walking, and it hits me, and I would quick pull out my phone, just talk to myself like a crazy person. Hey, this is what I should do, blah blah. This is why I want to do this, and why I think that, and then I would play it back to myself later, and that worked pretty well. I started getting a lot of different, uh, a lot of audio recordings of myself, but it became a little hard to organize. And sometimes you're listening to it and you're like, was this the audio that I had that idea, or was it not? And it's just because it's an audio, you can't just quick do a control find or anything like that to find what you were looking for. So I had the idea not too long ago, maybe a few months back, to create a smart journaling tool so that when I have these ideas, or when I make a voice recording, we could use something like Whisper, which is an open AI tool, to transcribe what I was saying into what you said into words, and then put it in a document. And then you would be able to um, create a journal entry from that. So creating a transcript is good enough. Like that's not bad, and that's not too crazy to do. And there's some tools out there that do that. Now, I wanted to go a little further because I realized that once you can put it down into words, then you can do so much more with that now that we have AI everywhere. So I've been working on this smart AI journal, and in this video, I want to show what I've been able to get to. It's still a work in progress, but if you want to learn more about this idea and how to use LangGraph and Langchain OpenAI in general to do something like this, or something similar, then definitely stay tuned. So I had another video on this where I kind of broke down what LangGraph is, but if you aren't familiar with that, LangGraph is a tool where you can basically um, use describe agents, or get all these AI models talking to each other, or AI runnables, I suppose. I need a less nerdy way to talk about this, but imagine you could have chat GPTs all talk to each other on behalf of your task. That's been something that's been out there for a while now. If you've been hip to that scene, AutoGen has really taken a lot of fame there for being a really great tool of promise. But LangGraph came out with their own addition to this, which is uh, a bunch of tools that use the LangChain library. Actually, they have a separate library called LangGraph, and it allows you a little more granular control over your agents. in previous libraries like AutoGen or Crew AI, which is also popular. There's a number of them. They tend to have this thing where you define a bunch of agents, and then you have them talk to each other in like this group chat, and they figure out what to do. But I always felt like that was so wasteful. As a programmer, been a programmer for a long time now, over 10 years, and um, I like the determinism of just a job well done. So I wanted more control in saying who can talk to each other, how should this process go, and have just more overall control over things like state, etc. So when I saw LangGraph, I was really excited because it essentially gives you all of this control. I think AutoGen has since then come up with its own version of graphs, which are basically ways that you can stitch together whole workflows of your agents. Now, I want to go through how I set up my agent. I have this Miro board here. And I not quickly, it took me all day, but I worked on it today for a couple of hours and I got some interesting output. So let's take a look. Starting first, we have this transcript retrieval. Now, this isn't an agent. It can be. Right now, I've just been, taking a transcript that I already had, and I've been using a tool called Obsidian. Obsidian has a plugin here that will allow you to record yourself, and it plugs into Whisper by OpenAI, and it will transcribe your audio into text. So I've been just taking that transcription and then putting it into my system, my app here. So here's the first agent we have. It's a summarization agent, and I give it a function called summarize transcript. And this is really interesting and really cool because when you do this with other agentic tools like AutoGen, there's this naive approach where you're just like, all right, this is what I want you to do, and do it. And I know in the beginning, myself and many other people were really underwhelmed by AI and seeing like, okay, it may be able to figure out how to how to summarize properly and get what you want. But a lot of times it takes so many tokens, and every time you run this, it's going to go through this. It's going to forget everything that it learned previously about the right way to write the code to do this. And then you're stuck wasting tokens. So what you do now with the agentic, the way that the agentic, I guess, framework is starting to come together in the modern day. It's only been like a year now since all this started going crazy, but write a function. And where I want to get to is have the AI write its own function and do all that iteration and save it. The Voyager project does that. I want to figure out how to do that with my agentic tools. I haven't had the time to do that yet, but interesting project. I'm sure it'll take a lot of time and effort though. So I wrote myself a tool, another function that actually uses AI itself, and it summarizes the transcript. So this is important because, sometimes you can have a stream of thought that goes 10, 20 minutes long, and you want to get the important parts of it. Now, this is pretty challenging. Summarization is a big part, a big challenge in AI and in programming just generally. How do you make sure you get all the best parts, right? The important parts, and not lose any of the data that you need for the subsequent steps. So right now I just did a simple approach, which is using Langchain to call, and I can show some code here so you know I'm technical. So we have a summarization tool over in utils here. GPT summarizer, and all it's doing, I'm using this first naive approach, which is just basically calling this LangChain function called, LangChain uh, framework tool called stuff documents chain. And it just tries to stuff everything in the context. You ask it for a certain way to summarize. And I ask it for, hey, give me 5 paragraphs. If you don't, give it too much, you'll know that you want a summary. That's what LangChain does. It's kind of like a glorified prompting library, but this does pretty well. I had something even more complicated where we would do a map reduce kind of thing. So when you get really long documents or really long transcripts, you want to split up the transcript, summarize them individually, and put them back together. So that's what this does. It's a little longer and more complicated. I have to kind of tune this. It wasn't working as well as I wanted it to, but I just stuck with the simple approach for now, and it's been doing pretty good even for the high 20-minute transcript that I had. So let's go back to this diagram. So once we've created a transcript, we go to the next step, and this is what we call an edge in LangGraph. An edge is where we basically declare in our workflow that we will be going from this agent to that agent. It's control here. It's not just a group chat where any agent can come in and say, hey, I have the right to do this, because sometimes they act stupid. So in our workflow, if I find that here, we can define who gets to talk to who. So if you see the summarization agent here, we add an edge, and the next thing it goes to is the actions extraction agent. So this action item generation node thing here is supposed to extract all the action items from what was in your transcript, and also summary. Actually, it goes off of the summary. What I would like it to do in the future is maybe this should be RAG instead, so it can ask questions of the like kind of try to retrieve information from the transcript rather than just give it a summary that may or may not have the relevant information. That can get complicated. I don't know. I wanted to not go into RAG this too early for the first iteration, but I know we'll have to go there eventually, which is RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So we have another function here called fetch file text. Now this is something I've learned with agents. You don't want to get into a situation where you're just passing a bunch of text amongst all these agents. That gets really bulky and annoying. It starts eating a lot of tokens. So what I do is I download things to file, and then I have a function defined that the AI can call to retrieve that file when it needs it. So it doesn't need to. So the previous agent doesn't need to pass all this text into the context window of the next agent. So that is that's how that's done. So once we get our action items, we go to the journal generation node here, and this is the most complex agent. It goes through and fetches the file that we got, the summary actually. So I have a generic function here which can fetch any file from that directory that we've been using to store all of our temp files, all of our files that we've been generating through this process. But this one will always look for a transcript summary. And then we can also get the transcript metadata from the original transcript, and that'll tell us like when was it created, etc. That's what I'm using to basically date the journal. So if you had created your transcript on the 25th, which is today, February, it would say this journal entry was for the 25th, right? And then we have a save journal entry to file. So once it's done outputting its text, it can pass it to a function which will actually save it to your computer or wherever you have this running. And then finally, this special function called fetch journal entry, which would get back exactly what you had saved. Why would we need that? Because we have this other step, the next subsequent step here. And like I said earlier, these lines represent edges. Journal generation cannot talk to the transcript summarization node. It can't even talk to the action item generation. But it can have a conversation back and forth with journal editing, the editor of this whole process. And I'll show that right here. We have a special function here called adding conditional edges. And conditional edges let us kind of define some conditions for which action to take, which node to talk to. So as we go to this process here, which is interesting, so we finish generating a journal entry. Now we want some feedback on it. So we talk to our editor. Our editor is there to make sure that we have the language right. There's no grammatical errors. We are having full, complete thoughts, etc. Right? So it will actually fetch the journal entry. So that's why I have it pointing to the same function. It will fetch the same journal entry and read it and then give it feedback, give the journal generation feedback. And the reason why I bring up this conditional edge is that, forgot to add that line. It can choose to go to the feedback and not to be confused with its feedback, but there's another special feedback node here, feedback agent, that I'll explain in a bit here. But it can choose to go to the next step if it feels like the editing step has been done to its satisfaction, right? So if it does have feedback, it can go back to the journal generation agent here and say, hey, this is my feedback. The journal generation tool will go fetch its journal entry and compare it to the feedback, say, cool, I'll do that, generate a new journal entry, save it to file, and pass the buck back to the journal editing step here, department. So once this editor is satisfied that its changes have been made, it will notify the feedback agent. Now, the feedback agent is where I wanted to have a little fun with this. So it basically, the only thing it does is read your journal entry, and I should probably have this, boom, and have another function here called append. It'll read the journal entry and then it will give you some feedback. So I want it to be like kind of like a motivational coach or like say if you use this to, and the way I usually do this is I'll schedule a meeting with myself just to give myself, just to do a review of my day. And in that review, I'll kind of go through ideas and things I should do tomorrow and how I should handle this and that. And they're very therapeutic. I think if you haven't tried it, give it a try, even though it sounds like a crazy person's habit, but it's great stuff, actually. It's helped a lot. And so because I want kind of feedback on like, how did I do today? Am I staying on task? Am I, what of these action items, how do you think I should prioritize these items based on what you know about me? So that's what this feedback agent is, and it's something I want to develop further, right? Of course, a feedback agent like this should know a little bit more about you, your goals, your organization, your company, what are you doing, and give you feedback on how your day went. So this is kind of like a, just a first approach to it. But I had a little fun with it, which is that I basically made it, this is a prompt here. You're a high achievement coach bot, which is part of the self-improvement journaling system, right? So I'm basically telling it to style its feedback in the voice of internet motivational influencer Dan Pena. And if you know Dan Pena, he's like kind of a no-nonsense, not safe for work influencer. So, but I got a kick out of listening to him. And he curses up a storm, but he has some really funny quotables. But he is the muse for this agent. And once we are done with the feedback here, so I ask the Dan Pena bot to, let me know, how am I doing? Give me some feedback for the journal entry for the day. How did I conduct it? How can I improve? Include some motivational quotes, anecdotes, and then append your feedback to the journal entry. And that's what gets done here, is that this function that you see is getting called, and it adds the feedback to the bottom. So one sec, let me run it and grab an output here. It does take like 5 minutes, so I'm not gonna sit through that. Okay, we're back here, and here's the output. You can see that the first thing is, and it's in Markdown, by the way, but first thing is the journal entry, right? And I kind of went back and forth between should it be first person or third person. I've kept it third person. Not sure. It's just, it kind of felt better, but might change it. So you can kind of see it's not bad on this day. Actually, what I did was I did a review of my day working on this tool, and then I ran it on the transcript that I got from it. So we'll see how accurate it was, or how good it came out. So it says, on this day, Kevin worked on a smart journaling tool that uses AI to summarize voice recorded journals and provide feedback. He implemented features like transcript summarization using MapReduce from OpenAI. However, he realized the need for a more tailored summarization technique. That's what I was talking about. So not bad. And nice little summary. Let's look at the action items. Improve summarization technique for self-improvement journals to identify important tasks in hot words. That is something I want to have in there. So hot words would be basically like if you said research. I would love to research the ongoing geopolitical situation in Taiwan, right? I would like the LLM to be able to pick up on that and run a research task where it'll do some summary research for you. And when you get your journal entry, it'll be like, hey, we went and looked up this stuff that you said you were interested in finding. So that's the power of like a tool like this, that you can start making all these agents that would take actions based on what you were talking about, right? So I thought that was pretty cool. So the action items are pretty accurate, actually. Resolve challenges and accurately dating journal entries. Yeah, that's true. I did talk about that. Yeah, this is all good. Let's take a look at the Dan Pena feedback here. Feedback. Kevin, you're on the right track. You're taking action. You're identifying areas for improvement. You're not afraid to get your hands dirty, and that's the spirit of a high performance individual. I guess like it's not that it's motivational, right? But the Dan Pena is not really coming through because Dan Pena is like usually like more negative reinforcement, so probably not like the best, because obvious it's not the best persona to give the node, because or the agent, because it's not gonna try to use bad words and all the stuff that Dan Pena does. But let's see if it could get more Dan Pena y. But remember, as Dan Pena says, just because you're doing a lot doesn't mean you're getting a lot done. All right, so he's trying to bust my what a little. Don't just work hard, work smart. Prioritize your action items. Which ones will have the biggest impact on the project? Focus on those. You've identified some challenges, like accurately dating journal entries. That's good. Challenges are opportunities for growth. As Pena says, the more you investigate, the less you invest. Dive deep into these challenges, understand them, then conquer them. The less you have to invest. Interesting. So that's cool. That's cool. And finally, don't forget to take care of yourself. Dan, as Pena says, you have to be super selfish to be super successful. Make sure you're taking time. I like how they're flipping. He probably said something like that, but probably not in a positive way. I don't think he'd ever like tell you to. I feel like he's more like the type who's like, yeah, destroy yourself in the chase of success. But this last thing was pretty Dan Pena-y. The only difference between a champ and a chump is you. Keep up the good work and you'll be a champ in no time. Okay, I mean, that was a little edgy, champ and chump. That's probably the worst word he used here. But I might experiment with this with maybe like Alex and Rosie feedback, or do something else. If you have any ideas for how you would like your feedback here, I would, like I said, I think it must know a little more about you, and it should be starting to get like a history of your other journal entries, so it can see how well you've been doing over time, so it can get like a summary of how that's been going over the journal entries. So that'd be really cool to do. So that's the tool. I'm gonna be adding a little more to this, adding some more agents. If you found this interesting, give me a like there. Let me know what you like the most about this. Let me know what other parts of this, like how could we make this journal entry super useful, and or journal, a smart journal tool, super useful for you and what you need. What would you need from a smart journal tool like this? Do you ever kind of just have talk to yourself, like do the voice recording, or have like a self meeting? I would be interested to see if I'm not the only crazy one. But that's the update. Stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll be making more agents.